Everybody. Thank you all for joining today. And I think we are just going to get right into it to respect everybody's time and get started. Just going to share my screen. Oops. Okay. Okay. Thank you everybody for bearing with me as we got our technology set up there. So, hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Inez Ortiz, and I am the program coordinator for the Sustainable CT Community Match Fund. And I would first just like to thank everybody for joining us today to celebrate the 5-year anniversary of the Community Match Fund. We are so excited to have 3 different project leaders join us today and talk about their experience with the Community Match Fund and how their project has had an ongoing impact in their community since they finished their campaign. So before we get into it, I just wanted to flag that this coffee hour is being recorded for anybody who wasn't able to attend or for anybody who is here and would like to just go back and review anything afterwards. And you can find a recording of this coffee hour along with recordings of past workshops, certification help, newsletter previews, and a great deal more on our YouTube channel. And to find our YouTube channel, you can just search Sustainable YouTube for Sustainable CT. And there will also be a link in the chat that'll take you directly to that page. You can also find a direct link to our YouTube channel in our monthly newsletter, Actions and Impact. A link to our current newsletter will also be put in the chat for you to check it out. And if you've registered for this coffee hour today, we can assume that you already receive our newsletter, but we do encourage you to check it out. We try to keep it fun and informative and different every month. So if for some reason, though, you are not receiving it, you can very easily sign up for it at sustainableCT.org by clicking sign up at the very bottom of that page. And while you're on our website, be sure to check out the Impact a Sustainable CT podcast. A link to that will also be put in the chat. And you can expect new episodes of The Impact on the 15th of each month. And you can find those on sustainableCT.org or wherever you get your podcasts. This month's episode specifically was an extension of our 5-year Community Match Fund celebration. So it was a great conversation with TJ Clinch, and he joined to talk about the Community Match Fund and many other community engagement things that he is involved with. So I would encourage you to go and check that out. And we would also like for everybody to save the date for the 2024 Sustainable CT Awards celebration, which will be on Wednesday, November 13th at the Katharine Hepburn Cultural Arts Center, or the CATE, in Old Saybrook. And we will be honoring all of our 2024 certified communities and a brand new cohort of climate leaders. And we will be continuing the celebration of the 5-year anniversary of the Community Match Fund. So it'll be a really special event, and we will be sending out formal invitations very shortly, but space is limited, so I do encourage you to register in the link that will be provided in the chat if you would like to attend, and we would love to see all of you there, so please come and meet us. Now that we have that, all of the housekeeping stuff, we can get into the Community Match Fund. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Community Match Fund, or if you're here to learn more about it, the Community Match Fund is a matching granting program, but it's unique in that it doesn't match existing grants like many other traditional programs do. Instead, the Community Match Fund is really meant to help bring community visions to life by matching small dollar donations dollar for dollar during a 60-day fundraising period. The program matches up to $7,500 for a total of a $15,000 budget for general sustainability projects, and we also have additional funds for climate projects that promote energy efficiency, renewable energy, and greenhouse gas reductions. So the intention behind the Community Match Fund was really to create a way to help communities bring their great ideas to life by providing an accessible funding source. So unlike traditional grant programs, which can be very burdensome and long applications, the Community Match Fund really tried to steer away from that, and it's really intended to be a low barrier granting program to encourage anybody in a sustainable CT community to utilize the fund to bring their great idea to life. So anybody in a registered community is able to apply for the match fund. Currently, we have 138 of the 169 communities across the state registered, so there's a very good chance that you're eligible to apply for the match fund. And when I say anybody, I do mean anybody. So any resident, town staff, community-based organization, student, and so on is eligible to apply for the fund. As long as you're in a registered community and you have a great idea that's going to be publicly accessible and benefit your community, then you're eligible to apply, and I would encourage you to. So, how do you apply for the Community Match Fund? It's a very simple process, like I said before. All you would need to do is email myself or funding@sustainablecT.org, which will both be in the chat, with your project idea, and then we'll set up a conversation just to talk about your project in more detail to see if it would be a good fit for the Community Match Fund. Once a project is approved, you are matched with a crowdfunding coach with our partner organization, Patronicity, who will provide direct support throughout the crowdfunding process for really anything you need and to ensure that you are having the best experience and having just all the information that we think you should have to be successful. So before I hand it over to our first project leader, I would just like to go over some of the impact that the Community Match Fund has had in the past 5 years. So as you can see on this slide, since 2019, the Community Match Fund has supported nearly 350 projects across 80 different cities and towns across the state, garnering over $2 million in donations from nearly 23,000 unique donors. In return, the Match Fund has matched nearly $2 million to help these projects achieve their goals. In total, that has resulted in an investment of over $4 million into community-led projects across the state. And these numbers really exemplify the way that the Community Match Fund has been able to play a role in bringing communities together for a common cause of making their community a better place to live in for all. And I myself am very excited to see what the Community Match Fund will be able to achieve and support in the coming 5 years. So if you would like to learn more about the Community Match Fund even after I've said all of that, then we will have a link provided in the chat where you can get more information and also where you can view some of the projects that we are currently supporting and have supported in the past. And we have allocated some time at the end of this webinar for any questions that you may have about the program or for the project leaders that will speak today directly. But feel free to put your questions in the chat as you think of them if you don't want to forget them. So with that, this, I promise, will be the last thing that I say. The Community Match Fund would not be possible without the generous support from the Hampshire Foundation, the Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation, the Connecticut Green Bank, and supporting Organizing Work Connecticut. So as always, we just want to express our gratitude to our supporters because none of this would be possible without them. Now, I will hand it over to our first speaker of the morning, Lindsay, who is a public works analyst for the city of Bristol, to talk about the project that she led in 2020 in Bristol. So I will hand it over to Lindsay now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Rivers. I'm the public works analyst for the city of Bristol. We are always looking for ways to integrate public works into every department. We're always looking to work together. And my biggest goal when I started working in public works was to integrate all the children into what public works does. If we can't get the children on board as young, citizens that are going to be adults one day, nothing will work. So we're always in there, doing recycle presentations with them and just working with them on their ideas so we can become a better, sustainable city altogether. So one of our first projects is the Bristol Gardens. We went in, we have 8,000 students in the city of Bristol, and we put in 14 gardens in every single middle, high school, and elementary school. And that was the first part of this whole outdoor classroom. So we went in and we did that. It was a 2 year project span because there's a lot of red tape. It's not easy. Even though I work at the city and I have a big mouth and I'm pushy, there was still a lot of pushback from principals, from teachers. My biggest thing is teachers leaving. So, and even principals leaving. So I always I wanted them to start like a club. I don't want just one teacher or one principal. I want multiple, one from each grade, or at least multiple participants, so that if that person left, it doesn't just die and go away and get weeded and no one does it. So that was our biggest roadblock right away. The gardens are still going strong. We do have a grant through Covanta that I fund this garden project with. So every year, the garden club president will email me in the spring and they say their list of stuff that they want to do. You can go to the next slide. List of stuff that they want to put in their gardens. And I buy all of those plants for them through the Covanta grant, and I'll go plant with the kids, and we just make it a fun thing. We have a lot of 3, 4 family houses, apartment buildings, and every kid doesn't have the chance to have a garden. So this is a whole school project. It's not just a garden club that only a couple kids use. It's a whole school thing. They put it in their classroom. We try to put math class, count the tomatoes, or whatever, however we can combine the gardens with this, we do it. And as you can see, these kids grew all of these vegetables. They walk by the gardens every day and pick everything, and they have a fun time. You could go to the next slide. In the fall, we started doing garlic. So every kid has, to measure and to do time, like how long is it going to take for it to sprout out of the ground. We literally think of every little thing that we possibly can to make it part of the curriculum. That is another problem with the school system. We are always teaching to the test, and it was hard to push the teachers and staff to let the kids get their hands dirty and not be in the classroom, but still learn their math or science or whatever it has to be. So the teachers have been great because they get to let me teach the kids, and they get to sit back and watch the show, but it's been so much fun. At the end of the garden season, we can go to the next slide. At the end of the garden season, we take the seeds, like Diana will be talking about with her marigolds, and we put that back into the high school right here. We have 2 high schools, Central High School, Eastern High School. We have about 4,000 students in the high schools. We built greenhouses for them. They have about 100 kids in their garden club. They are beating the door down to get in this garden club. I can't, as you can see here, they were planting bulbs. So they did daffodils and tulips. This ended up getting sold in the springtime, and they did like a fundraiser for their school for whatever they wanted to do. These kids are, I didn't think I would like working with the high school kids. I thought I would like working with the little kids better. I love working with the high school kids because these kids want to do this. It's not like they're being forced, like they can't wait to do it. And they're always saying, can we do this? Can we try this? Can we do it this way? That's what it's for, to learn. So as you can see up in the right-hand corner, that was the hot mess of the greenhouse at Central High School. Public Works went in. I had all of my staff there on their free time, and we went in and gutted that whole thing and made a beautiful greenhouse for the students, and they are still using it today, 5 years later. You could also see that rain barrel there. That is used in their science class. They use it to water all of their plants. They measure the rainfall after every storm. So the high school students are very good about coming up with ways without me having to think of it to tie it into their curriculum. You could go to the next slide. This is obviously an elementary school. So every time we go into an elementary school, a lot of our employees have kids at the schools. So as you can see, one of our employees is planting with his daughter. I have two employees up there building the gardens. Both of their kids went to Stafford School at the time. My child went to Stafford School at the time. So we always try to get everybody involved, so it's a fun experience for everyone. You could go to the next slide. So this is a whole overhaul too. I actually got ESPN involved to help me because funding is the biggest problem with everything. If I can't find money, I'm going to try to find a way to get it either done for free, or that's where I started the crowdfunding for my outdoor classroom, which we'll talk about next. But ESPN gave me 40 people one day, and we did this whole entire garden over. So you can go to the next slide. So COVID happened and made me completely miserable, like it made everybody miserable. And this is when we wanted to do our outdoor classroom. And it all came to a screeching halt 3 months later when the entire school system shut down and everybody went in their house, and we couldn't be near anyone or do anything with anyone. It was awful. So that gave me the opportunity to obviously raise the funds, because the city was like, okay, Lindsay, I love your crazy ideas, but we don't have money for it. So figure it out and we'll support you. So we were bronze at that time with Sustainable CT. This is when crowdfunding just started with you guys. And my goal was to raise $12,000. I hate when people tell me that I can't do anything, or so I was determined that I was going to raise the $12,000, and we were doing an outdoor classroom. As you can see here, we raised almost $15,000. You can go to the next slide. So because the school system was already working with me with the gardens, they were fine working with me and agreeing to do an outdoor classroom. What I didn't realize when I designed this whole outdoor classroom is when the students came back, being outside was going to be a way more like the students were going to be way easier to get outside with COVID and be able to take their mask off and sit away from each other than sit in the classroom. So the teachers were like, do it, because now I can go outside and I can teach my class, and these kids get a break from having a mask on their face. So again, while the whole world is at a screeching halt, I have 110 public works employees. They all wanted to wring my neck, but we were able to design an outdoor classroom that was not going to just blow over in the wind. And we must have went through 5 different outdoor classrooms. They would put it in, they would cement it, and I would be like, I hate it. It doesn't work. Go back. But then all of my guys down at the yard, they put their heads together and they built this amazing outdoor classroom. We do have some issues with things, but again, we're working. You don't know until you try. Here's Stafford School again. They were the first ones to get the outdoor classroom. They poured a concrete pad. The kids came out, they sat, the teacher did full classroom. Not even for just the garden. The garden is part of it, but they did just their regular class out there because the kids were able to take their masks off. You can go to the next slide. We were asked to do the documentary for CPTV, which we did, and the link will be either on the slide or somewhere in this where you could watch that. It's multiple municipalities. We built the outdoor classrooms, and 5 years later, we do have different teachers, different principals, but I email every year and make sure that they have what they need to make sure that they could use the outdoor classroom. We do have some issues with the doors. They won't lock them, so they'll blow off. Our guys have had to go back a couple times here and there, and fix stuff, but for the most part, they're still using the outdoor classrooms to this day. My child is in the school system, so I know if they're not using it. And then I go and email that school. But the teachers are fantastic. The students, fantastic. Even elementary students. Lindsay, can we do this and that? And they come up with, can we do pumpkin growing contests and between all the schools? It just gets their mind thinking outside of the box and not just in that classroom teaching from a whiteboard or whatever. So obviously the experience was fantastic. I was able to go back to my board and my city council and say, I got the money and now I can do what I want. 13 schools, again, all have these outdoor classrooms. Some have multiple, because in the high schools, we have a lot of students, so they have 2 outdoor classrooms. And they're being used daily. I get pictures from teachers. Thank you for doing this. We just spent all day outside. And 5 years later, they're still using it. So that was a lot of talking, sorry.
No, that was great. Thank you so much, Lindsay. And as Lindsay mentioned earlier, they were featured on the Resourceful film, which when we send out this slide deck at the very end, you could click the link right here in this to be able to go watch it. It's a great watch. Now we are going to hear from Diana Martinez, who is a program manager with the Catal Center. And I'm not sure why this slide looks a little bit zoomed in, but maybe if we go to the next one, we'll hope that it's a little bit better. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Diana.
Okay, hey y'all, my name is Diana Martinez. I'm presenting today on the work that we've been able to accomplish through the Sustainable CT Fund in cultivating farmers. I'm sorry about my slide deck. I kind of consider myself a Canva goddess, and if you're an actual graphic designer, just ignore that. Yeah, because the slides are not transferring well over to the PowerPoint format. But if you want, Lindsay or Inez, I can share my screen so that we can see all of the slide instead of just like the top 2/3.
Yeah, we can do that. That's completely fine.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, no problem at all. The Zoom world is meant to have some problems.
Mm-hmm. You have to just enable the share option for me.
There you go.
Thank you. Okay, now I have to hit present and y'all get to see all my tabs. Help. Okay, great. So like I mentioned, I'm here from representing both Chickasaw Farm and Cultivating Justice, and talking about the work that we've been able to do through the campaign match, the community match fund. Instead of talking a little bit about myself, I'll say who I'm here representing. So I'm here representing 2 entities, Cultivating Justice, which is a program of the Catal Center for Equity, Health, and Justice, which is focusing on building the next generation of BIPOC farmers in Connecticut. And we say BIPOC instead of BIPOC because Latina folks are pretty invisibilized in our food systems, although they bear a good grunt of the responsibility for our food systems. And so we add that L in there to make sure that we think about them and that they're visibilized in this process. I'm also representing Chickasaw Farm, which is a Bloomfield-based organization supporting BIPOC farmers directly. Both of us are working on increasing the number of BIPOC farmers in Connecticut. The difference being that Cultivating Justice focuses on the programmatic aspects And Chickasaw Farm focuses on more on direct farmer supports, like helping them with the infrastructural farm business needs. But together we work towards increasing the number of BILPOC farmers, increasing the capacity for urban agriculture in Connecticut, creating public education on food and farming, and we work on intersectional food justice. Anyone who is food insecure is likely also living in a community that's housing insecure, resource insecure, underinvested in, and so we're and um, hyper hyper represented in the mass incarceration systems, and so we're very interested in this idea of abolitionist farming, or farming without harming, farm without harm. Um, okay. So we've run two successful DMF campaigns so far. The first is our education series, which is a term that I coined. So like if anybody tells you that they coined it, it was me. Don't believe it. Um, our first education series was really like a informational session. We realized that a lot of folks didn't have an understanding of what it meant to be farmers in Connecticut. And so we hosted this like how to be a farmer course that we funded through the Community Match Fund. Our second campaign is the Planting Seeds campaign, composting crops and community crops and composting, which is pretty self-explanatory. But y'all didn't know this, but you're here for a pop quiz now, because there is a common thread between both of these campaigns, and the common thread is behind the shed. If anybody knows, if you have a guess, you can put it in the chat. But if you don't, that's okay, because I'm about to hit next either way. All right, the common thread behind the shed is composting. Because soil health is essential knowledge for everyone, but especially for farmers. Learning how to make a nutrient-rich soil is a base for like growing great vegetables and growing great produce. And composting is pretty accessible in terms of the things that farming activities that folks can get into. You can compost in an apartment. You can compost behind your house. You can compost in community spaces. We have in Middletown the ability to compost as a city. So composting is fairly accessible, pretty low cost, depending on like how you do it. And something that children can do, that seniors can do. So it's accessible across the board. Next is a little bit about our project. So the first education series, the goals were really to explain the requirements and process for becoming a farmer, talking to people and teaching them why a farm number for BIPOC folks is important in a state where 98% of our farmers are white. To recap the history of farming in America from the perspective of a person of color or people of color, and to recap the history of the Food and Farm Bill from that same perspective. And also to cover the basics of how to compost and get people set up with a composting project and have them try out this idea of like creating your own soil and making best use of all the things that you're already growing by adding them into your compost pile. Oh, this little bird here might be a rooster. If he's a rooster, just ignore the egg. I added the egg in there. Okay. I'm not a chicken person, y'all. Here's some samples of our slides from that presentation. So we talked about like why we're in a state where 98% of farmers are white, what's caused that scenario. Here's a couple samples of the slides on farming in America. This one is talking specifically about how the New Deal was inaccessible for sharecroppers and tenant farmers, which overwhelmingly were Black folks and poor white folks. This slide talks about the rise of farm worker movements in America, and also the increase in undocumented farm labor as a source of producing our food. As a cheap labor force, and the exploitation of folks of Latina descent in that process. And then here's a sample of a slide where we talked about all the different ways that you could compost, and really run through in depth like how to do those things with the folks that took the course. As a result of that project, we had 15 people go through the training and got all the materials that they needed to set up their first composting project, which was great. Everyone started a composting project of their choice, either vermicomposting or composting in a bin or traditional composting. And we were able to purchase all of those things in partnership with like the city of Middletown's annual sale of composting supplies, which is fun. And we've been able to create and update like multiple offshoots of this training that we've offered to upwards of more than 40 people. At this point, we have a version for young people specifically. We have a version that's just the history. We have a version that's just beekeeping. And so we've been able to sort of create multiple versions of this. And we have 5 new registered BILPOC farmers in our network, which is a big win for us, and a couple dozen others who have started their farm projects and are on their way to, like, maybe registering to farm, which is also a win. Folks are having their own food source and or egg source or produce source. That's a win for us as well. So uh, the second project, we focused on creating space for intergenerational, interracial, multi-gender learning, and growing food in community spaces and composting. Of course, supplying the infrastructure for composting. And that was our Planting Seeds campaign. Um, this campaign focuses on the Miller Street community in Middletown, which maybe you can't see here from this picture, but is a community that's directly next to Route 9. It's between 2 train tracks, which run between the community here, next to Route 9 and underneath the Portland Bridge, which is right on this end here. The community is almost entirely landlocked by man-made structures, and was slated for demolition at one point in the 90s, citing blight and contamination, even though we have not found evidence of contamination so far. So we worked with the city to use this property to start our community farm project. And we started by building raised beds because we weren't sure about the soil contents or the soil health in the community, and also because raised beds are more accessible for folks who are older or have disabilities, and myself included. I do not want to bend over all day every day to pick some vegetables. And so the raised beds are a good addition and easy enough for young people to also participate. Our plan here is to have 4 raised beds. Right now, we have 2 built out, a chicken coop, storage shed, and to eventually build out a gazebo and improve the parking lot and the basketball court, because although this space is a public park, it's not been really invested in the last 20 years in any kind of real way. They just kind of mow it. There's no infrastructure here other than the basketball and a parking lot. There's like not a playground or anything like that. And so we wanted to also improve this space and make it a space where community members feel like they can gather and have a good time. Okay, go slide. Okay, next. We've been pretty successful at that so far. We have a shed, which is like a big deal for me. I love the shed. Also, we have honeybees that we keep. We have 2 hives now. We have a plan to expand to 4 next year, so that'll be good. As you can see, our beds are made with galvanized steel, which we made that choice intentionally to like prolong the life of the beds themselves. And we worked with community members to plot and a community farm partner in Firing Farm in Portland to get the seedlings, plot them out, and things are booming. If you see, like the marigolds are booming. That's why we had a marigold mania also. And we harvested marigold and taught people how to make tea and out of the marigold heads and save the seeds for pods. And we've grown so much food that we distribute to community members who live in the area. And we grow with them, we grow for them. They get to decide what we grow. So we had surveys go out to community members asking them what do they want to grow, and people told us what they wanted to grow, and then we went and found that thing. So we have so much growing and so much more planned, and all of this was made possible through the support from the Community Match Fund. And this is a group of some of our members hanging out. As you can see, we have intergenerational, interracial, multi-gendered community of folks who feel really happy in this space and seen and like they're part of it, and they are. But that okay, so this is what's worked well for us. And I'm not a fund development person, so like don't take my word for it. The community match fund has allowed us to make a tangible ask. So like you can tell someone like this is where your $10 is going, as opposed to making a general ask of and people assuming that it's going to go to like my salary or something like that, which is not, y'all. So the tangible ask says like $10 gets you this much. Like $15 gets us like a bucket for this kid to start composting. And that feels like a much more tangible thing for people to pitch into. It's enhanced our base building to some degree. So like we've been reaching out to folks, making connections with folks by way of like asking them for money, which feels like a weird thing to say, but it is a thing that's happened. And we've been able to sort of diversify our donor streams. So as you know, the Community Match Fund isn't just individual donors. Your organization can contribute a certain amount, but we've also gotten donations from like American Eagle Bank, from other folks, from some of our smaller foundation funders who are saying are happy to like pitch in $500 if they know that is going to be matched with another 500, right? And it's allowed for creative hustling. Or like I coin creative hustling. But like when you're a week out from this thing and you're like so close to goal, you have to get creative about like how you're gonna get there. So we set up, we're fortunate that we have an office on Main Street, Middletown. We've set up a table during Pride and had someone like we got some plants and seedlings from our firing farm partner and asked, for donations in exchange for a tomato plant or a broccoli plant, etc. And that really helped us build our visibility and also like get closer to the match fund goals, which was a lot of fun. And it was a lot of fun, y'all. So that was great. The process has not been without its challenges, though, and the biggest challenge here in Bold is municipal barriers. And it took us the better part of a year just to get a lease going for this space that literally nobody has looked at for like the last 20 years. And it's incredible to me to witness how one person, just like one person on a committee in a decision-making team, can make things so challenging for folks and create that red tape where there otherwise may not be that red tape. And so our solution to that has been to organize and to get community members to write letters, to petition, to show up at meetings and push for the right to farm in our communities and the right to grow food and access to public space that's creative. And so we'll continue to do that work. In the future, our next steps are in recognizing that power comes in two forms: organized money and organized people. Organized people beat organized money 10 times out of 10, but organized money works to disorganize people. It is one of our organizing tenets. We recognize that we are going to continue to build and grow and organize towards creating the kinds of communities where people can thrive and not just survive. And also have to get creative about organizing our money a little bit more effectively so that we can find creative methods for fund development and sustainable fund development in the future. So I'm gonna drop my email in the chat if anybody wants to set up a one-on-one with me or talk more about our work and our projects. I'm happy to do that. And I had a Q&A slide, but we're gonna do Q&A after presentation. So I'll skip that one and stop here for now. Thank you so much, Inez, for letting me share her screen.
No, thank you so much, Diana. You
Okay.
definitely earned the title of a Canva whiz, I will say. And that was a really great presentation. It's such a great project. So great to hear about it. Thank you again. And now I'm going to pass it over to our last speaker of the morning, certainly not the least speaker, of course. So now we're going to hear from Berta, who is the executive director of the Litchfield Community Center. And Berta's going to tell us about her Litchfield Community Greenway project. So over to you, Berta.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am so inspired by both Lindsay and Diana. I mean, kudos! Wow, such a great thing to hear about your projects and to join in that same energy that Sustainable CT has put us into such a great shape to get projects done. And ultimately, it's not for us; it's for our community and the people and residents around us. So I am the director of Litchfield Community Center, but I also have the privilege of being on the board of the Friends of Litchfield Community Greenway, and have been there's two words that I associate with the Greenway, and it's patience and perseverance. We have been at it, believe it or not, since 1996 was the first time. Some people probably on this um, group here weren't alive. I don't know, but just it's a group of volunteers who have just been so committed to getting this project where we can connect the village of Litchfield to the village of Bantam. It's about a 4-mile stretch that goes through residential areas, goes through White Memorial, and makes its way down to Bantam. And one of the key parts of our project has, getting people to cross the trail on roadways. And this Bissell Road Boardwalk project was really a key spot. It's close to Route 202. If you're familiar with Litchfield, it's a very, very busy road, not only for local residents, but it's a throughway from, all points northwest, south, and east. So a very, very significant crossroad. And Bissell Road is right off that. And it seems like people just come flying literally about 100 yards right where the boardwalk was constructed to allow people to cross over to the Greenway safely. You can go to the next, please. So our Greenway is not paved. We are following the old Chippewa Railroad, and the bed is one that cannot be disturbed because of the arsenic and whatnot that is under the ground. So we have had a hard pack material as our base, and it's actually worked beautifully because it still gives us a real sense of nature and easy to repair. You can smooth out the material if you need to, fill it in as you need to, versus asphalt, which can be troublesome in our neck of the woods in terms of frost heaves and flooding and all that. So we're going along the Greenway here. We're at about 1.2 miles, and we're going to be reaching Bissell Road. And when we reach Bissell Road, right away, there's a car coming. And it's a blind corner both ways. I didn't take a picture the other way, but someone's asking me a question. I'll get back to you on that. So the roadway that comes up to Route 202, we needed to solve that problem. We didn't want people to be scooting over and motorists not being aware of their presence. So we started our project with a plan of creating a boardwalk, and we learned that it was going to be about $25,000. So we teamed up with Sustainable CT. They said yes to our plan and arranged a wonderful crowdfunding source, obviously, through, was it Patronicity back in 2020? IOB, was it IOB? Yeah, okay. So we teamed up with them, and our goal was to raise $25,000 combined with the money that we had, and we were able to actually raise 11,500 matching from Sustainable. So in the end, we had a total of $27,795 to work with. So we were over our goal, and we really got excited. So we started to build. Next slide, please. Of course, that means some clearing, some leveling and whatnot, and the back end of a dog, just to know that we do allow pets on our Greenway. Next one, please. Pretty cool construction. The important thing to point out here is that this was all volunteer labor. We were able to purchase all the material, which is about 150 feet worth of material, and you'll see how it evolves. Basically the decking there, and we had to put lighting in. So before we started to do the decking, we made sure that we had all of our concrete in, and these are solar powered rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And the cool thing about them is they're solar powered. They're activated by the pedestrian on both ends as they approach the Greenway. They hit a button, and these rapid rectangular flashing beacons alert drivers coming up that somebody wants to walk across the road and continue on to the greenway. So next slide, please. Two of my favorite volunteers, Jeff and Matt, always my yes guys. You got to have yes people in your life, no doubt about it. People who aren't going to be, trying to figure out, change plans. Lindsay, I heard your comment about, and actually Diana too, that some of the obstacles that you have to deal with, and they're certainly there. But I always get inspired by surrounding myself with yes people, and these two guys are just fantastic. Next slide, please. You can start seeing how it's evolving, and it truly was an amazing hands-on project. I earned a degree in nail gun technique. My initial day was pretty tremendous. I was flying all over the place, but then I had a very patient fella named Lance who really taught me how to nail it, and I did. And I believe we put over 10,000 nails in this 150-foot stretch here. So continue on, please. Just another look. And here you can see, this is on the east side where you'd be coming out towards the road, and you get to walk along this beautiful boardwalk area. Continue on, Inez, please. Another view from the other end. And there we're at a very important juncture where we're going to be crossing the road that's the closest end to 202. Next one, please. And now we've crossed the road, and we actually had to add some more boardwalk. So we were very fortunate to have that extra money to work with, because we thought that we were just going to be able to put the material down and continue. But after a wet spring and early summer, we said, you know what, while we're here, let's just make sure we're proactive. So we were able to build this added spur of the boardwalk. Next, please. And that's it right there. And we just are so happy. That's a really good span of, you can see, people approaching from in their vehicles, can really see people walking on and almost anticipate it themselves without having the lights flashing. And it's just so safe. It's even a bike. You can go on the boardwalk with a bike, a stroller, a wheelchair, whatever it may be, and know you're safe. Next one, please. I shared this photo because it's very, very special. One of our private donors who decided, when he saw the Sustainable Tea crowdfunding, all the alerts that we put out, the gazillion emails and messaging and phone calls, he decided, because he was terminally ill, that he wanted to be able to give something to the community. And he donated a bench, and it's actually for him and his wife. And gosh, I'm getting filled up. Dave and Fran Wyke, and they placed that bench right next to the boardwalk. And this is about 6 days before Dave died, and they celebrated Valentine's Day. So I felt that was important to share. Just a really special memory for us. And then the next slide is actually Fran and her son, Hunter, who, when it was time, did all that they needed to do to make sure that the bench was secure. And it's such a delight to go along the boardwalk and get to the intersection and see that bench and people actually sitting there just enjoying it. So it wasn't just our efforts. It's just really rallied some really special people coming forward and say, hey, we want to add to this. That was not on our plan. And it's funny because as a result of it, I think we've had 4 other benches donated. So it's pretty special. The next one, please. And then really, when we think about what we do in life, it's not for ourselves. We're really investing our time and energy and hopes for the kids. And my energy is around a group of kids like this that we just, we saw them walking down the greenway with their parents, and they were just about ready to get to the crosswalk. and we just had a really great moment. And mom and dad taught him how to hit the button, and that was a whole new experience and seeing the flashing and stuff. So, again, whatever we do, again, listening to Lindsay talk about how she loved working with the kids, but then really loved working with the high school kids. And when those high school kids grow up, they'll be working with the high school kids and the younger kids too. So it's a great cycle of life in our service and the ways we make a difference in our communities. And then the next one. And this is such a great, great moment for me to acknowledge Lynn Stoddard, who brought Sustainable Seed to our radar here in Litchfield. We had gone to the Connecticut Conference of Municipality, I guess their big conference, and we were invited by our local first selectwoman, and she just knew that Sustainable CT was doing a lot of good stuff around the state. And that was very, early on, but Lynn was such a stalwart and such an energetic individual, and just made such an impact on her really, really direct involvement, engagement, and presence. And she made a trip out even before we had submitted our plan to see where we were at and where we wanted to go. And I'm so pleased that Inez and your colleagues, you are carrying this on in such a beautiful way. And I'm thrilled to think of what's to come for Connecticut and our community. I just finished another crowdfunding experience as a result of the support of Sustainable CT, beautifying an area of an old railroad station. So I thank you very much for that. And just the final word is, it takes a lot of confidence and commitment and really passion to carry out these projects and to be able to rally your community around something that they also realize is bigger than them and can have a lasting impact for many for years to come. So thank you.
Thank you, Berta. That was such a great presentation and a bit of a tearjerker, if I will say, but we now have about like 8 minutes, if anybody would like to stay after too, for questions to open up to everybody. I do have a nice question slide, but I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I could see all of your beautiful faces. So let's get into the questions, but before, I do just love to talk and I love this program so much. So thank you so much to the three of you again for presenting your amazing projects. I feel so lucky, and I know so does the rest of the Sustainable CT team to be a part of such great projects that are not only putting down roots for the community now, but for years and years to come. So that's my soapbox, and let's get into the questions. So looking at the chat, it looks like Alice had some questions that Diana, you guys are talking about, which is great. If anybody would like to come off of mute and ask a question directly, that's great. Or if you'd like to put it in the chat, I would be happy to read it out.
I do want to mention for the outdoor classroom, we did use it as one of our equity toolkits, and I didn't mention this in my presentation. We went from bronze to silver, and that was one of our 3 toolkits that we chose to do. Because we worked, slept, and bred that project, it was easy to do the toolkit. We did push it over to Jessica before we did a final on it. She came back, she met with us a bunch of times. They were absolutely fantastic. So we were able to hit every single point in that toolkit to get credit for it.
Yes, and it's so great to see the equity toolkit and the process you explained. It seemed like it was such a natural fit. So exciting. And if anybody wants to read that equity toolkit, we do have all of those records on our website under our archived certification reports. So go take a look if you'd like to read it. It's a good one.
I think Diana should take her presentation on the road. Honestly, the information that you shared in all of 20 minutes, if that, it was just so appealing, but also so stimulating. That I want to learn more myself. and wonder how I can support that. And I do appreciate for everything that you're doing in many, many, many ways, bringing people together to get dirty in the best way is just super. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
same, Berta. Your work is amazing. Beautiful. Thank you.
Well, David from Bristol is gonna stop at Miller Street, Diana, to see the project, which is super exciting. Which
Hey, that's wonderful.
we love to see it. These two of the three projects you can go see, visit. I am in the northwest corner. I go to the Greenway all the time. It's great. You probably can't go to the Bristol schools and see the outdoor classrooms, unfortunately, but there's lots of pictures you'll get in follow-up. So, well, if there are no questions, I'm happy to give you all 4 minutes back of your day. But again, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who took the time to attend this and to our three great, fantastic project leaders who spoke today and gave such amazing presentations. I myself look forward to keeping these presentations and looking at them, and I know everybody else probably does too. So we will send up a follow-up email, like always, with a copy of the recording to this and a copy of the PowerPoint. And we could also include the contact information for the speakers if they're okay with it and if that would be of interest to everybody else.
Yep.
So thank you.
Absolutely. Happy
And
to.
yeah, great. And if anybody has any community match fund ideas, oh, like Berta said before, you have to have yes people in your life. I want to be the yes person in your life. We want to say yes to your projects, so please bring them to us. Bring them to us. We'd love to support them. So feel free to reach out to me, funding@sustainablecT.org, info@sustainablecT.org, and I hope to see you all at the Kate in November. So thank you everybody again.
Thank you.
Bye, have a good day.
Goodbye, everyone.